Oh, my baby, no give up. I know God give it again. Give me another song.
Otan. Neuro X. Otan. Otan. What's that look?
Good evening and welcome to Kiki's Chat Show. Today is Wednesday, the 11th of April. It's so strange, but we are in the second week of April. April seems to be flying very fast. And the question is, why are powerful women, smart women, intelligent women, always branded as witches after a while? Is it that women are too smart for men? What is it? If you want to join in, the number to call is 0203 735 8820 or 0203 286 0185. Call anytime. I will answer if you're there and we'll talk. We want to talk about witchcraft and witches. Yep. I'm going to play another song and we'll come back. Right. Yeah, we're back and we are discussing witchcraft and why women are always branded witchcraft. Now, the persecution of witches has nothing to do with fighting evil or resisting the devil. It was simply entrenched in social misogyny, the goal of which was to repress the intellectual woman. A witch isn't supposed to be wicked. Have you, any of you, ever seen a woman on a broomstick? Apart from in films, have you seen a naked woman in the dark conjuring something? Or has anyone seen a woman consult with demons? Women are superior beings, it seems. And it seems like weak and ineffectual men are constantly afraid of women. Now, on this show, this 1 hour show, people constantly now who have become aware of the show are constantly asking me to talk about certain issues. Women are constantly worried about a lot of things that we all take for granted. There are many types of persecution and blame against women. And one of the most common crimes against women are to call a woman a witch. The minute you call a woman a witch out loud to other people's hearing, it becomes something else. Now, this show, as I said before, tries to bring to the fore issues that happen in our day-to-day lives. Some easily dealt with, and we talk about it, and some are rather sensitive and downright painful and scary. People come to me to discuss all sorts of issues, and yet they themselves are afraid to come on the show. They are afraid to, be identified. They are afraid for their voices to be heard, just in case someone would recognize the voice and say that, oh, so is this what's happening? We are socially so frightened and scared about everything that's happening in our lives these days that we dare not invite anyone or let anyone know what our fears are, what is happening to us, and why we may be sad or something. Now, I have a story. I actually respect people who want to be private. That is fine. I respect them. I respect their space. However, to discuss certain issues also helps others in the same predicament. And a lot of private people know this. So radio programs such as mine are here to discuss these issues. And because I respect people's privacy, I will not ask you to come on air and talk about it. Or if you don't want to, you are uncomfortable and you do not want to call, that's fine. Now, I have a story, and the story is this. A lady, let's call her Abna, because I can't tell you what her real name is. And Abna is really, really, really far away from who she really is. So you just listen to the story and digest it, decipher it. And then if you feel like calling me at any point to talk about it, after I've finished the story, call me on 0203 735 8820 or 0203 286 0185. Please write the number down as I say it, because I will not see your message if you keep asking me what the number is. I will not know it to tell you. We're talking about why women are constantly being blamed for witchcraft. Now, the story is this. Abna was married to a very controlling man who treated her very badly, even in front of her children. She was beaten, abused, pushed out of their home in total degrees of undress. There was a time she was in the bath, something was happening downstairs. She goes downstairs, the man had been on the phone. He then banged the phone, pushed her out because it was a friend that he had asked her not to call. So she is her, body washed, holding a towel, all this screaming, goes downstairs, and the guy pushes her out. Children are all standing inside the house crying and that sort of thing. That's terrible. Anyway, one day she mustered courage and left him. She was a seamstress by trade, and so because she lived in Birmingham and was on the abused women's register, she was moved into a shelter with her young children and later on moved into her own home. And slowly she rebuilt her life, and her children thrived, bloomed, and flourished. They then went through university. She had 3 kids. I think it was two girls and a boy, she said. And they went through university. 2 of them are now working. The other one hasn't found a job yet, but it's all good. Normally, she would go to visit her parents with her children. And over the years, her husband moved to Ghana. He died, and you know, and he was a different case. The children didn't know him really well, etc., etc. However, her eldest daughter goes to Ghana, and somehow, through some people, out of curiosity, she wanted to know where her father was from. Her mother, she'd never been with her father to see where her father was buried, etc., etc. So she goes and she meets her aunties. And one of her aunties, you know, so she meets her aunties. She has a holiday with her friends and they all come back. Upon her return, she began to shun her mother and became quite hostile. But her mother didn't understand what it was. She didn't know why her daughter was being so distant from her and all that. So one day, and the other daughter also began to make excuses, was always out of the house. She had become rude. And she said what was strange was her daughter kept staring at the younger one, kept staring at her all the time. And she didn't know why. Anyway, one day her son comes over and says to her that when his elder sister went to Ghana, she met her aunties. This is her father's sisters. They went together to the grave. They prayed. Everything went on. She stayed there a night and a day and came back to Accra. And while there, they told her that her mother, Abna, was a witch. And that it was her witchcraft that pushed her father out of the house. It was the witchcraft that has helped their mother become successful in her business, her sewing business. She's a seamstress, and now I think she sews for children's clothes for a shop. She and a gang of friends, they have a sort of a consortium of some sort, I don't know. So they sew children's clothes in Birmingham, she said. And that, you know, and that's why her daughter, who was 26, in view of her mother's witchcraft, that is why at 26 she wasn't married. And this girl believed it. So when she came back, this is why she would not visit her mother. She wouldn't speak to her when she called. It was her mother's birthday. She never came around. You know, little things like that. But these little things are big things. If you, a single mother, single-handedly looked after your children, they've grown up, they go and meet your in-laws and your ex-in-laws, and they tell them or feed them that their mother is a witch, and these children believed it. So after all this suffering, these children believed that their mother was a witch. Now, Abna is upset. She has prayed on it. She has called people to call her children to intervene, to try and let them see. It's only her son who's on her side. The rest of them have no sympathy. They actually believe this, and they feel and blame her for leaving their father, who was beating her. This is a woman who has scars on her body. The man's sisters have told the children that he was beating the devil out of her, and they believed it. Now, this is someone who has told me this to talk about it on radio, to let other people hear her story. But she is not unique. This is so bad and prevalent in our society that there are even witch camps in Ghana. And there are camps where widows, women who do not have children, women who are blamed for adultery, women who are too mouthy are sent to these camps, under the accusation or a trumped-up charge of witchcraft. The witchcraft is then tried to be beaten out of them, and they are taken away from their children, etc., etc., to suffer these hardships. It's like a prison camp, really. How are we allowing this to happen? But this is not unique. We have these camps in Ghana, yes. They happen to people. It happens to the poor and downtrodden. It happens to people who have no say. There is this story about a woman as I was doing my research. And one of the things about this show, I only have an hour to do this show. And one of the things about this show is some of the things I didn't even know about them. So I have to go and research. Okay? So I did some research and I found a woman who said that she was accused of being a witch by her ex-husband, who beat her severely, poured melted plastic over her while she was pregnant with somebody else. She had left this man because he was constantly beating her, went off to her parents' house, stayed there, married somebody else, and was getting on with her life. This man heard about her doing well, decided he wanted her back. She said no, so he decided to beat her. It was revenge. He followed her, he beat her, and also beat her elderly mother and younger brothers. Her new husband said he could not protect her, so he took her to a witch camp in Gambaga, a place on the north somewhere, at the top of Ghana, the map. Gambaga is the topmost town in Ghana. And he took her there. How can you do this to somebody's child? How can you do this out of revenge? Now, most religions believe in good and evil. The main issue is how people respond to this belief in witchcraft. It is to do with the way society copes when misfortune hits. They always blame someone. An accident occurs, job loss, loss of property or something. It's always somebody's fault. Now in Ghana, for example, and I use Ghana because that is my mother country. And so I know and I hear and I see. It's prevalent in Ghana because we have this dogged belief that nobody on earth, or especially in Ghana, dies a natural death. It's not normal. Whenever someone dies, we have to blame somebody else. This is, in fact, in my research, I've said this is fact in Ghana, but in my research, I find out that this is normal in Nigeria, in Gambia, in the Cameroon. It's everywhere in Africa. It's even in the Western world. It's, they're witches. The thing about the Western world, though, is how interesting that witchcraft, people were hunted down, blamed for witchcraft. They were burnt at the stake. Joan of Arc, for example, this wonderful French woman who was brave. She was a warrior, just like Winnie Mandela. A warrior who fought for her country was blamed for witchcraft. And then she was burnt at the stake. They tied her to wood and they set fire alight around her and burnt her because she, as a woman, she couldn't possibly be so smart, be so brave, so brazen to fight men. I don't know. I think I'm getting a caller. Let's see. Nope, it's not a caller. And you kind of think, why? What is happening in the world? So anyway, Joan of Arc, a whole host of women have been burnt at the stake. Scientists. Now, There was even Cleopatra was called a witch. I have been to visit a friend of mine, and while there, the fight erupted between her and her husband over some petty issue, and he said to her, "You're a witch. You're a stupid witch. You know, everybody's going to hear about you one day." Now, I don't know if that's their foreplay or if that is how people talk to their partners, or if this is acceptable. To me, it was abhorrent. Abhorrent indeed. Now, people, names and things that you call someone could etch a mark in their heart. You cannot be maltreating someone, calling them witches, when do you know that witchcraft really is a form of control? You know, to call someone a witch, or to say you practice witchcraft and things, and then to tell other people, which then drives them into a frenzy, which then makes them want to hurt someone, is an evil act in itself. It is violence. It is violence. It is I'm looking for a word, but it will come to me. We have to be careful how we brand people, how we call them names, and the things that we say. In America, in Salem, witchcraft, people were called witches. They were burnt at the stake. They were imprisoned. They were tortured. And sometimes the torture itself would make them admit or say that they were witches when they weren't. But the people would say this just so that they would be let, freed. But they wouldn't. They would then drown them or burn them or do horrible, untold things to them. And really, at the bottom of it is a priest or a businessman or somebody who wants their land. When people are branded witches, when people call other people witches, there's something to it. I'll tell you one thing. I have been following the issues in Brazil. The president of Brazil is called Dilma Rousseff. Now, she is the 36th president of Brazil. And somehow or other, this is a woman who, like Winnie Mandela, has been beaten, imprisoned, tortured, maltreated. All sorts of untold nasty things have happened, just like Winnie Mandela. However, she divorced her husband early on. She had a few children. She got her life into gear. She then entered into parliament, was a deputy minister, and then became the president. And when she became the president, in a country where 66% of the ministers are alleged to be corrupt and take backhanders and do all sorts of corruption and be involved in corruption, they have impeached Dilma Rousseff, and she has been accused of criminal responsibility for failing to act on a scandal at the Brazilian National Petroleum Company. This is a woman who was fighting for freedom and justice for her country. This is a woman who was tortured for her country. This is a woman who was as straight as a die, and yet they have managed to find reasons to impeach this woman in a parliament where 66% of people are corrupt. And then they tell you that some interviews were held and 2 of the ministers called her a witch. Astounding. What is this label of witchcraft? Now, if women had witchcraft, would they not do something to the people who call them that? If you call me a witch, and I really was a witch, I would put a spell on you, a hex on you. But I can't, because I'm not. So, but I cannot also prove that I'm not, as it is with a lot of people. Look at this woman up now, all the way in Birmingham, after all that she's gone through with for her 3 children, for her daughter, who she used to call her right-hand woman. This girl and her, I don't know what has happened, that you spend a day and a night with your other side of the family and you begin to hate your mother because they called her a witch. Think on it, people. I'm going to play a song, and when I come back, we shall talk some more. What's the other song?
Otan. O-T-A-N.
Look for a pen and write it for me. The pen is here. Slow down. Which one?
The one by Nero X is the one I've been trying to tell you.
Old time.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a little bit of relief from the seriousness of this show. Today, it's quite serious and it's quite sad actually, because if really men always disarm a woman by calling her a witch, women disarm other women by calling her a witch, how does one know that the person is a witch? You have never seen her on a broomstick, you've never seen her with a cauldron. Women are smart beings, women do amazing feats. A friend of mine was telling me the other day that her husband said to her, "You must be a magician, the way that you work our finances and sort things out in our home." Now that is a very good thinking man. He respects his wife. He sees how much hard work she does, and he also, the guys are watching football and they're making so much noise next door. I can hear them shouting. It's getting on my nerves. Anyway, so this is something that we really need to move away from name calling. It is a form of terrorism. It is a form of abuse. If you are in a relationship with somebody and all you know is to get to the bottom of, to say the worst, to always blame her for things and to disarm her with a name, what is that? Why can men not strengthen themselves? Or these envious women who always see other women and blame her for them for things. Why? What is going on with people? Why can people not just live? I can go 10 years without calling anyone a name, but I can be upset with you. I can, rant and rave at you without calling you a warlock or a wizard. So why would you call me a witch? So anyway, coming back to the Brazilian president who was called a witch by 2 ministers and also for trying to impeach her and blame her for things. This is a woman who was tortured. She was put behind bars. She spent 3 years behind bars. She was interrogated repeatedly, tortured with electric shocks to her feet and ears, and forced her into a kind of a parrot's perch in which victims are suspended upside down naked from a stick with their wrists and ankles bound. That is horrible. Naked. By the time she came out, her uterus was bleeding and had been perforated, although she's never said what exactly happened to her for that. Now, after all this suffering, this woman gets to the level of president. Now, she wants things to be above board. She wants everything to be transparent. She wants life to be easy for all the Brazilians, especially the ones in the favelas. And yet, look, why are we going through all of this? Why is it that a woman cannot peacefully be what she wants to be without suffering, without name calling? I as Mrs. Thatcher and other women of her ilk are exempt because they themselves, but sometimes I do feel sorry for them because it's as if they are, for them to get where they were, they have to toe the line and be like the men, and so they forget that they came on there and the votes, under the votes and the help of other women. They come out and then they become horrible, they become difficult, they do not do what we expected them to do. They take milk from children. Right now, we've got the sugar tax, so everything is expensive. I think my chocolates are going to become expensive. They already are, and that is a problem in itself. We all go through situations, and we all go through terrible, terrible things. Regarding the story of the woman I just told you, it is so shocking and so sad, and it has put her into a depression because she constantly keeps saying, my right-hand woman, this is the girl I struggled for. This is the girl who her husband beat her because she did something and he was going to smack her, and she said, oh no, she tried to save her and this man beat her. She ended up in hospital. This same child is now calling her a witch because her aunties, who have never been part of her growing up, are calling her a witch. People, when people give a person the name of a witch or brand you a witch, it's because they are trying to disarm you, to weaken you, to take something of yours that they want. Men have been called witches, but it's not in the way that it disarms a woman. Cleopatra was called a witch. Lots of people are called witches. And if you go back and look in history all the way down, even Hillary Clinton was called a witch. And as for her, the interesting thing about her witchcraft is because if she wasn't a witch, her husband would not have had affairs and treat other women badly and all of that. If she was a witch, she could have kept him at home with her witchcraft. If she was a witch, she would have used her witchcraft to let him stay at home and not go out. But, I mean, she has been as powerless as the next woman whose husband has affairs. They have actually done cartoons. This is when she was with Donald Trump. There was this cartoon thing that I saw. It's not television, so I can't show it to you. This is radio. And they called her, the caption was, "The Wicked Witch of the Left." And they claimed they had sources testifying that she smelt of sulfur and took particular delight in depictions of her being melted. Now, why? What is happening? And things and acts that used to happen hundreds of years ago, whenever men are in a supposedly clinch or they're in competition with a woman or something is going on, like on Facebook when Winnie Mandela died, people actually called her a witch. They they named some things that she'd done and then said only a witch could do this and all of that. How can that be? How can that be? You know, there were times when these suffragettes, and ladies, I want you to listen carefully, because if you have dreams or if you have something that you want to do in this men's world and you kind of feel like somebody is stopping you or someone says, "Oh, you're a witch because of that, that and that," do not let it deter you. Do not let it deter you. Try and carry on. Keep on keeping on, because in all this time there are a lot of people who have been held back or who have been afraid. And unfortunately, it is not even just, it's even a poor person, somebody leading a poor life. They suffer even more. They are the ones who are persecuted in the most horrible way. Now, you may be called a witch in an area just because you're old and you live quietly on your own. What betide you if you have a cat? In this country, children follow old people, throw stones at them, sticks and stones, because they may be old, because they have a stick, or because they have a cat. That is so unfair. That is so unacceptable. It's very unacceptable indeed. Now, a lot of people who've been called witches, a lot of people who've been to prison, people who have suffered, if they really had witchcraft, do you think that you will be able to arrest them? Do you think you would be able to treat them the way that you do? Do you think you would be able to torture them? They will just put a hex on you and you would die. So we all know that the majority of people being called witches are not really witches. Sometimes you are, if you knew, people do use herbs to cure people. You're afraid to do a herb or give someone something in case they call you a witch. So you keep, and this is how some of our herbal methods and practices died. It is the fear of being labeled a witch. Now that we are realizing that the medicines that these white people or these Europeans are giving us is actually killing us with side effects and things, people are now talking about superfoods, herbal drinks, drinking clove oil, drinking this oil, that oil. Really? Isn't that witchcraft? Are you not making a witch's brew somewhere? We really have to be careful. And we, in Ghana, for example, have to try and get rid of the witch camps that they set up, it is not a safety place. It is not. And this has been going on for years. Now, one of the gender issues that we overlook when we talk about women getting low pay, when we talk about women being abused in the home or being abused at work, we forget branding. We forget name calling. Particular ways of weakening, disarming, and belittling a woman are things that we call them in public. Things that we call them to make other people dislike them, to make other people begin to become afraid of them enough to harm them. That's where we're going with this. And when you think some of these bad behavior has stopped or ended, then we realize that they just lie dormant until trouble erupts, until a situation occurs, until someone dies in the family, until, you know, something. And then we find someone, the weak person, to blame. And if you can't find anyone, you just blame the woman. There have been loads and loads of research on this, and yet it is never actually brought out. You see, here in the Western world, in the UK especially, there are witches who claim to be white witches. What is that? There is a white witch and a black witch. Now, the black witch is the one who wears a black hat on her head like Halloween times, and she has a cat and a broomstick, and so she rides in the night. Now, some of the witchcraft is in the superstition level where people are in the spirit and therefore they go and do their nefarious things in the spirit. And then we have the people who are supposed to be clean white witches, and they just mix herbs and make people better, and they give you amulets and things so that you do not harm, you do not come to harm, or they give you the eye. What is that? We are differentiating between it so they walk up there with these brushes and they're blessing a home. These are the white witches in this country. And so we, the Africans, we are killing each other. And there was this thing, and it's funny, but I should share it with you. And they say that, the European witch uses her witchcraft to fly a plane, and the African witch uses her witchcraft to kill people, to fly a plane. If that is witchcraft, then it's science in itself is witchcraft. Engineering is witchcraft. There are a lot of things going on now that has propelled us and made us progressive and put us in the modern world. Light and all of these things, can they be witchcraft? Because if it is, then ladies, study hard. Do your science and engineering courses well in the universities and your school studies so that you become the advanced witch. I urge you to arm yourself with knowledge to become some special kind of witch, because for constantly and forever, if a woman is blamed for certain things, you ask yourself, why? Maybe we should stand there and think and wonder how we can strengthen ourselves to do certain things, where if you are called a witch, you fight back. Just before I came on air, I was on the air with a lady called Mami Gega, who's doing her show before. And she actually said something interesting. She said, it is only a witch who can identify another witch. How do you know a person is a witch if you're not a witch yourself? We all need to be able to find out where our strengths are, and regardless of what people think, we make ourselves into advanced witches. Hone your craft, people. Hone your craft. The meaning of witchcraft is not what it is today. In those times, a craft is anything. Sewing is a craft. Craft is working with your hands, doing something. Even writing is a craft. A skill is a craft. If you have it and you can work it. So when they say witchcraft, what do they mean? What do they mean? When someone labels you as a witch and you are not a witch and you are a good Christian person, face them and ask them, how did they know? How did they know? I will be going, I've got 6 minutes to go, and I have a load of comments. I have a few comments here as well on GN Radio. Let's see who's commented. I need to see. I can't see, so I have to go. My thing is choking me. Ooh. My headphones are choking me. I can't see the comments, but I wish I could so that I can read them to you. Lots of comments. Sheila says, hello, sweet. You enjoying the show? Excellent. And somebody says, live from Pram Pram, Accra. Yay! I've got somebody from Accra. Yeah. On GN Radio. Excellent news. Thank you all for listening. I have to play one more music, and then I have to go. If someone calls you a witch and you know as a woman you're not a witch, just ignore them. Face them and ask them how they knew. People use that word to disable other people, to disarm. Or sometimes you are fascinating enough to make them scared of you, be afraid of you, and try and bring you down. Don't allow it. Even after Mrs. Mandela died, people were calling her a witch. If Mrs. Mandela was a witch, the way that she was so against the people who were taking over her beloved Zimbabwe, she would have used her witchcraft to disable them, kill them, make them deaf, dumb, and powerless. She couldn't. She had to fight them. She was in prison. She was tortured. And all because she really wasn't a witch. She was just a strong-willed woman. Thank you so much for listening to this show. I have enjoyed even talking about something which I had no idea about until I started studying it. I was shocked at the pain of which my friend went through, and I urge you all to not be disheartened or disabled or disarmed because of it. What she has gone through, a lot of people go through. It is not new, but we can fight it. We should fight it. Listen to this song. It's by Nero X, and it's prayerful in itself, and it's energizing as well. You have 3 minutes. What are you doing here?
I can't hear your music.
I'm okay. My music is not loud.
Yeah, it's very It's okay. It's on now. There you go. It's moving.
don't know what it means. But
oh yeah, some. Oh yeah, some. Let me tell you
Tell us it's no.
Young to say,
Tell us it's no.
you know, be more, be precious. You know what is that? That's what I got. It's in a telemunia. That's what you're making. Many are testify.
Hey!
What?
Back to the center. It's nice. It's a good way to say bye-bye.
bye.
You're welcome, people.